life. So today we're dealing with the spirit in words, and this is going to be a combination of panel discussions as well as just kind of going through some slides to show some very important information that will change your life. And so, in the spirit of words, we're talking about the creative power of language. So, make sure you have a pen and pad. If you miss anything, don't worry. We will do a rebroadcast on our fan page, and you can pick up wherever you missed out. The disclaimer is the opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the presenter. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of the 30-Day Redemption or its members, officers, staff, partners, or advertisers. So let's talk about language. Came across some information that says Hebrew is the language of creation, that the actual language itself is a creator or creative language. For those who are scriptural people, we know that the creator said the word and the word was created. Genesis 1, if you read that, chapter 1, verse 2 and 3, it says the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, not deep water, deep space. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So why are we pivoting on that? Because a word was spoken, and that word created everything that we now see. Hebrew and Sanskrit, another reading, it says that it has power. Those words, both the Hebrew and the Sanskrit. You'll see Sanskrit maybe in places like Cambodia or any of the southern places like the Philippines. You'll see Southeast Asia. You'll see a lot of Sanskrit in some of their writings. But it says that Hebrew and Sanskrit has power before time and space configuration of light. What does that mean? Before the earth was made, that these words, that this language had power before even the world was made, which built all that there is. So everything that was built off of this language. Hebrew is a mathematical language. And so you can see by the chart that we have that each one of the letters in the Hebrew carries a value. And the mathematical value is what creates the equations that we live in. So we're actually living in a very scientifically, mathematically, spiritually organized world. And if you ever get a chance to go back and check a presentation on patterns, you will see how some of those patterns work. For example, in that dialogue, we talked about how if you look at even your own family and the birth and the deaths within your family, you will see a pattern. We had someone come on and speak about that in detail. And there's more. Even Dave Chappelle tried to draw that parallel in his recent stand-up comedy that he did, 8.46. So there are mathematical equations. Do we know the mathematical equations? I don't know. Okay. Some people claim that they do. Okay. Numerologists claim that they do. But the Hebrew language is a mathematical language. And so the intelligent design that created everything has all of these things calculated precisely. If we learn that mathematical, if we learn the language, we may be able to tap into some of the wisdom there. There are patterns and formulas that govern the world. All things that exist are created by the initial math and spirit spoken by words. Why are we going through this? Because words are power. Okay. And if we examine closely and begin to understand, we may be able to figure out some of the equations of our own life. You may be able to, through silence or through words, create the outcome that you want. All right. So that's why it's very important. Okay. Let's continue. Originally, from the beginning, all languages were one. There was only one original language spoken. It says, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. You can look at that in your scriptures, Genesis 11:1. So at some point, everyone spoke the same language. Unfortunately, they used that language to do something that they shouldn't have done, which was to build the Tower of Babel to try to make their way to heaven. But nonetheless, everyone spoke the same language, and then the languages were confounded. And when the language was confounded at the Tower of Babel, that's why they call it Babel, because they went from speaking one language to babbling, couldn't understand each other. That's why they call it. And from Babel came what? Babylon. The irony, right? So, oh, and for those who don't know, Babylon is today what they call modern day Iraq, okay, or Assyria. So the languages were confounded, and the word now had to travel through all these various nations and manifest it into different languages. So if you look at the screen, you'll see before 1000 BC, you had all of the Egyptian, Sumerian, Canaanite, Akkadian, etc., etc. These are all descendants of Noah, his sons, etc. But the languages became numerous. So at one point, we were all on the same page, at least language-wise. Okay, you see Sanskrit is in there, first millennium BC at the bottom. Okay, so the languages now, the word now multiplied into various languages. So how did language manifest? How did language manifest, and in how many different ways is language now expressed? Let's take a look. I have hopefully I have my guest on, Karash. I hope he's here. He put this chart together, and is Karash on? Okay, Karash is not on yet. Okay, I'll come back to Karash because I want him to explain his chart. Okay, but Shalimar is on, and I wanted Shalimar to go into this particular conversation. Or Shalimar, you could touch on Karash's, or you could touch on this one. You let me know which screen. But I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the Hebrew and talk about what certain words mean, and just try to bring us up to speed on that. So tell me which screen you want, and you could go ahead. You might have to unmute if you're muted. There's a little mic at the bottom. Just give Shalimar a second. Okay, so we'll come back to Shalimar. As soon as he's ready, I'll go back to that screen, because I wanted him to go into and explain how these languages actually were formed and how words were formed from what people saw and the naming of them. Okay, let me see if we could get him unmuted. Is there any way that we could get Shalimar unmuted? Maybe you could help him unmute his mic. Okay, we'll come back. Okay, so for this section, we'll come right back to it as soon as he is. Shalimar, as soon as you're able to get your mic on, just let me know and we'll jump back to the screen. Then we have the Egyptian hieroglyphics. Okay, so these are the manifestations of language. Ancient world used a lot of symbols. They use art. And a funny thing is, our children and even us learn better through what? Visuals. Some people say I'm a visual learner. Some people say I'm an auditory learner. But symbols in the ancient world is how they dealt with language. That's how they expressed the language. And so we'll see the hieroglyphics, and it sticks in your memory better than it does with a lot of words. And I believe, and this is just my own personal opinion, I believe that a lot of times children are just bored with all of those words. They need images. And that's probably why they were more interested in reading with picture books than words. Sometimes words are overwhelming. Some people suffer from dyslexia because it's just sometimes too much words on a page. Okay. But the ancient world used the images as far as how they expressed words. And then we have the Adinkra symbols, which is from the Akan or Ashanti people in West Africa. Today you would call them Ghana. Okay. And they also have symbols that express. For example, this symbol here seems familiar. You didn't know that this was coming from Africa. Okay. From the Ashanti people. But this is the symbol of what? This is the symbol of love. Okay, this looks like an afro pick right here. Okay, so these symbols, even though people don't always give credit to the creators of them, we see these symbols manifesting in our modern day world. This particular symbol, I've seen this on the gates. If any of you live in any place where you have to put gates, especially in New York, I've seen this symbol designed into the gates at my house. Okay, so these symbols are the manifestation of words, and they have meaning. Okay, so let's look at another manifestation of words, and this is the manifestation of words in water and what happens when words hit water. And just to bring things back into perspective, the reason why words are important and the manifestation of words is because you have the power in your tongue to speak words, and you can speak life or you can speak death. It's really up to you. But to ignorantly speak and to cause an effect or a manifestation that you don't want, hopefully that will stop by us looking at what are the manifestation of words. So let's see this quick video on water. Okay, some people say they can't hear the volume, so let's start that over. Make sure that it can be heard. Let's try it again.
Hey guys, it's Mikey Chen. Water is all around us. We enjoy looking at it, we enjoy playing in it, and we really can't survive without it. But what if water is not how we typically see it, as just a body of liquid? What if water is far from being inanimate? What if it's actually alive and responsive to our every thought and emotion? Japanese scientist Dr. Masaru Emoto undertook extensive research of water from around the world, not so much as a scientific researcher, but more from the perspective of an original thinker. He realized that it was in the frozen crystal form that water showed us its true nature. Dr. Emoto performed experiments where he would freeze distilled water and observe them under the microscope after exposing them to things like music, words, pictures, and thoughts. And the results were nothing short of remarkable. For example, here is a distilled water crystal that has not been exposed to any elements, and it looks like a plain hexagon. After Pastoral by Beethoven was played to the water, it formed a complex and delicate looking crystal like this. And for all you Beatle fans out there, here is a water crystal which looks like a flower after being exposed to John Lennon's Imagine. Also, here's what the water crystal looks like after being exposed to music from Bach and a Kawachi folk dance. Pretty gorgeous, right? But when the water is exposed to a heavy metal song, it didn't form crystals at all. It just looks coarse and dented like a rocky surface. The next one is really interesting. When water is exposed to Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel, the water crystals formed in the shape of this, what looks like a broken heart. After receiving some fascinating results from music, Dr. Emoto took the experiment to the next level by showing different written words to the water. Here's what the water crystal looks like after being shown the words thank you and love and appreciation, truth and eternal. All beautiful, especially the crystal formed from the word eternal. It looks like a crystal within a crystal. But when the words shown to the water were you make me sick, I will kill you, and Adolf Hitler, here's how the water crystals turned out. As you can see, the crystals formed from water exposed to positive words. It's far more symmetrical and aesthetically pleasing than that with dark negative phrases. Now, in case you were wondering, the water's reaction to words was not only limited to the English language. Dr. Emoto tried this experiment using different languages and the results were the same. Something else that was really interesting was that prayer also had an effect on water. Here's the picture of water crystals taken from the polluted Fujiwara Dam. And this is what the same water crystals look like after a Buddhist prayer. Dr. Emoto also wanted to see if pictures had any effect on water, and it did. Beautiful crystals were formed when photos of the sun, Niagara Falls, and dolphins were exposed to the water. And finally, the ultimate experiment. Can water sense our thoughts? Does human thoughts have the power to change water molecules? Dr. Emoto and his team focused positive thoughts on the water for weeks, and the water crystals turned out brilliantly. But when they focused ugly thoughts towards the water, it resulted in deformed crystals or no crystals at all. Now, as you may know, water makes up over 70% of the Earth's surface and from 50 to 70% of the human body. And if these experiments were accurate, then think about it. The water inside our bodies could possibly be affected as well by words, music, and even thoughts. For example, when you're at a dinner with your family, you feel loved. But say you're in New York City during rush hour, you may feel hate and resentment. That could be because at the most fundamental level, the water in your body is reacting to the emotional energy or thoughts around you. So basically, we have the power to transform ourselves with our thoughts. Better yet, we have the power to transform others, the whole world around us. So if you believe in the results of this experiment, then perhaps if we were all more positive to those around us, it could make the whole world better on a fundamental level. Guys, let me know your thoughts about this experiment.
Awesome. So obviously, words, intentions, and the way that those thoughts are expressed, even non-verbally, has an effect. So if you have water in your body, which we all do, the intentions around you, the words around you, the vibration around you, the content, the sound, all of it has an effect on the blood that's flowing through your body. The water that you drink, it's having an effect on that. It's having an effect on the water you're showering with. So obviously something has to be done a little bit more deliberately than just kind of floating around, pun intended, not knowing what's going on with the water around you and the water in you. Okay. So here are some other expressions of the word music. And for those who are wondering, they may say, well, art isn't, because everything began with a word. All that is created was created from things that were not seen. So if it was created from things that was not seen, it was created from something that was spoken. And then it just continues to develop by person, by inspiration, etc., etc. So music is an expression of an inspiration from someone who was created by the word. So is art. So is books, coding. The platform that we're on is created by words. Okay, so we know that words manifest because it's all around us. We have another video where this Harvard professor breaks down about the mathematical simulation. He's pretty much confirming that the word is alive. the language lives. The language became light. The light began to manifest all the things that we're living in. So he's now going to go back and he's going to break it down a little bit more, because what? Hebrew is a mathematical language. And from there, everything else that's created from the confounded broken language still has that spirit in it. So we can't go around it. Here's another video.
There have been various models about how the cosmos is structured, over the centuries. And, at one point, people talked about the clockwork universe that we lived in. And now the computer is often the metaphor for how the universe is structured. And Jim, I know you've done some work on this whole idea of maybe we should take that idea more seriously.
No, we shouldn't. But you forced me to a point where I have to speak. So I don't know how familiar the audience is with some of my research, but leading a group of both mathematicians and physicists about 10 years ago, we found an extraordinary result in some of the equations that are part of string theory. As I said, what I really do is I work on a subject called supersymmetry. So it's got symmetry in it, but it's got more symmetry than you probably should want to ever see. In this the mathematical context of such equations, we have discovered that there are mathematical structures that are indistinguishable from error correcting codes, as does occur in digital information transmission and establishing reliable digital information transmission. And because of this, many people have concluded that the work that I and my team completed means that the universe in which we live must resemble the science fiction movie The Matrix, where we're all some kind of simulation of some program running, and that's exciting for a lot of people.
It's a little unnerving.
Well, and then there, of course, you have Bostrom, Nick Bostrom, a philosopher, who has really, put this point front and center for the public and for
who says the computers will take over.
Yeah. It basically says that we're all just simulations. I like to point out to people a couple of things with that that I find problematic with that. One is, if you accept that, then you have to also accept the existence of ghost.
Existence of
ghost. Edgar Allan Poe. Ghost.
Oh, okay.
Ghost. Right?
Why, Jim?
Because if we are simulations, there's some kind of substructure that we don't have access to that runs us as an app. So when we die, what does that mean? It means that that particular app was ended, that the app stopped running, right? But if that underlying superstructure still exists, and if there's no damage to the codeware, whoever is running this superstructure can re-enable a app, let's say Jim Gates 500 years from now. So Jim Gates comes back as a ghost. It's built into the idea that the universe is a simulation. This doesn't sound like the universe I exist in. So although many people like to say my work supports simulation theory, I actually believe that it's pointing to something far more beautiful and subtle about the nature of the laws of physics.
Very interesting. So essentially, without the scientific jargon, he's saying that the creator created that substructure. We are the creation. Language created us, and we are spirit in a earthly body. But they won't say that. They have to scientifically explain the very same thing. So this sounds sophisticated, but essentially it's saying we were created. And when we die, our spirit or our energy continues forward, and then you can always come in another form, or in another body, I should say. Okay, a spirit body. And the reason why we're going into this subject is because we are in the spirit segment. Okay, so let's continue on, and we may go back if we can get the explanation of the Hebrew part going. Okay, so how does the word travel? How words travel? So words contain math and spirit. We've established that. We both established that within the scientific community, and we've also established that within the spiritual scriptural community. Okay. So what is the impact as this word travels now? So for example, this conversation is traveling through technology, or as the professor brought out, it mixes the two worlds between the technological world and the spiritual world, because it's all encoded all around us. So this is an example of that, because this word is traveling from here to other countries, Africa, the UK, the Caribbean, various states. So what impact does words have on the mind? Okay. Is Shalimar, is that you, or are you available? Other than that, if you have background noise, just mute for us, please, so that it doesn't disturb the listeners. But Shalimar, if you are here, just let me know by just saying I'm here, and then I'll pull you in to the other part of the conversation. All right, so let's look at this quick video, see what impact now happens when information, when the word or a visual or art or music, what happens when this information hits your mind?
The human brain, one of our most complex organs, allows us to move, feel, think, and learn. Inside the brain, a dynamic network formed by billions of nerve cells processes information via electrical signals. Each neuron receives information from thousands of other neurons via multiple processes called dendrites, and transmits information via a single axon. At specialized contact sites called synapses, electrical signals trigger the regulated release of neurotransmitters stored in synaptic vesicles. These chemical messengers bind and activate postsynaptic receptors, initiating a new electrical signal in the next cell. But how does a presynaptic cargo, for example, made in the cell body, end up at the right place within the cell? For this, neurons use active transport to sort specific synaptic proteins between the axon and dendrites.
Okay, so we're going to have Estella, and Estella's going to come on, and she's going to explain a little bit more of how information impacts the brain, how it goes through the nervous system, and how it affects the body in various ways. So I am going to, hold on, let me come out here. All right, Estella, are you available? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and while we talk, I'll pull my slide up. So let's see. Okay, you can see my slide, okay?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so what we just seen in that video is basically our neurons at work and how they transmit information from one neuron to another, and how it allows us to be able to move, allow us to be able to breathe, and does things in the body, you know, voluntary and involuntary. And so here I have a picture of neuron, and basically sensory neurons are nerve cells within the nervous system responsible for making impulses. It does like an electric impulse throughout their body, which can activate motor neurons to achieve, movement and everything else. And so information processing starts with inputting from a sensory organs, which could be, from seeing, from touching, from tasting, from smell. These are our sensory neurons, which transport physical stimuli, and like I said, like sound wave and photons of light into electrical chemical signals. And so the sensory information is repeatedly transformed by algorithm in the brain it's like an intricate concept. So once information is processed to a degree and attention is filtered in our brain, it decides how important the signal is and which cognitive process it should be made available. And so in terms of language, and language is, so before speaking a word, you
And
hear.
Estella, before you continue, is it possible that we could see your whole screen? Because we're only seeing a segment of your screen. Is there a way you can adjust that?
Let me see. Can you see my slides?
We can see the slide, but we're only seeing a corner of it.
What about if I bring it smaller? Can you see it?
Maybe, or maybe you could do a present mode.
Should have been.
There you go. Okay. And just close that little thing off to the side and just.
So if I go like that, can you see the whole thing?
No.
Or no?
Where you had it before, we could see the whole thing.
Okay. So I guess I'll try to make it bigger.
There you go. Okay.
So in terms of language in the brain, and so before speaking a word you just heard out loud, the information must first travel to the primary auditory system, so auditory cortex, then a part of the brain which is called the bronchi, what you see here. It helps to produce the speech, and then we have the Wernicke's area of the brain, which also plays an important role in listening to and processing language. And so these two parts of the brain, they go back and forth in processing the information that we hear. And so as they're processing the information, it's like it's sending out through, because in our nervous system, we have the central nervous system, we have the peripheral nervous system, and the central nervous system, which is the brain, consists of the brain and spinal cord, and then we have the peripheral nervous system. So once the information touches the brain, it's backfiring between the two sides of the brain, and then it's finding its way down to our spinal cord, which then goes down to our peripheral signals or peripheral nerves, and then sends information to where it needs to send that information. So in order for the brain to process information, it must first be stored. And then there are multiple types of memory, including sensory, working, and long-term. And then first information is encoded there. And then there's the different types of encoding that sends different sensories, or like different electrical signals to the body to make it do what it needs to do. So if you're looking at, a host of neurons would code for the related items or ideas, and then it starts to fire up and it activates whatever that thing is, and then it sends the information throughout the body. So it usually takes about 70 to 100. So the speed that it travels is 70 to 120 miles per second. So the information is traveling very, very fast. And depending on, different neurons, they have long axons. So depending on how long the axon is, that's how long it takes for it to travel throughout the body. So the shorter your axons are, the shorter it takes for the information to travel. The longer they are, the longer it takes for it to travel. So knowing more than one language shapes the brain, and it helps to basically widen, expanding your brains, and it's helping you and your brain to almost like it gives you like a bigger ability to kind of work with in coordination and conducting different movements, or different even like forming new words and all that stuff. And so I did put on here just how a normal brain looks like and how Alzheimer's brain looks like. And so Alzheimer's, basically, it's our brain shrinking, and that can happen through just different, toxins. I mean, it happens with time and over age. As you age, it's probably the primary risk factors for Alzheimer's, but there's other things that causes our brain to shrink, which causes us to, have less neurons. And so the information is not traveling as fast. And that's how people, as you can see here in the Alzheimer's brain, So in somebody who has Alzheimer's, their brain is basically shrinking. And by 2020, the numbers of estimated rise will almost, I think right now it's like 6.8 million people suffer from Alzheimer's. And by 2050, 14 million people could suffer from Alzheimer's, which is the experience of cognitive, behavioral, and physical abilities. And there's no cure for it. But this is just to say how our brain, the language and how our brain travels, the neurons in our brain and how important it is, the electrochemicals in our brain and how it does the work of how it travels to our body. And let me see. And so I have a video here. I think it kind of just shows how, let me see here, as you can see how when words gets to our brain, and you can see like in the front of the brain when it first starts, you see the red patches, and that's like our brain trying to pick the word selection. And so I was reading somewhere where it says even like the front of our brain sometimes in the cortex, how sometimes even before we hear sounds, and how sometimes our brain, before even we can see the red patches, our brain starts interpreting information just by like the sound that you hear. And that's how sometimes people will respond without thinking before the brain can even, have time to pick a word or have a response. The front of our brain is already like ready to respond. And so that's how important our word is, because our brain is picking up these sounds so fast, and it's traveling a response throughout our body. So I hope that makes sense.
Excellent. Real quick, if you know the answer to this, does nutrition at all affect Alzheimer's and the shrinking of the brain? And I know we'll cover more at the end, but just off the top, it does. Okay.
Absolutely. Like our metabolic, there's something called metabolic disorder. So by just the things that we put into our body that can, that hinders our brain from, that helps us, that doesn't help us, that can kill our neurons, like toxins, smoking, eating certain things, alcohol, all those things can shrink the neurons in our brains, which, doesn't help our cognitive system, or doesn't help us cognitively.
I know a few colleagues of mine said, man, that they smoke weed so early in their life that it messed with their memory.
Yeah.
So that probably is where that's coming from. Okay. Well, Estella, thank you. Did you have more that you wanted to bring out on that?
No, I mean, I just had a slide here how the, brain cell damage. So basically just different things that can, mess with our brain cells. And those are what basically our brain cells is on neurons. So, like toxins and metabolic disorders having extensive damage effects related to like widespread throughout the brain, just like different disorders or even brain injury can cause, a traumatic response to the brain, and which can also take away from, our ability to do pretty much anything, our motor skills. So our brain is, our nervous system is really controlling everything that we do. So anytime there's a damage to the brain, doesn't matter what it is, it will affect our whole body and our whole system.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, Estella, for that. So we see now when the word hits your brain, in order for the words to process properly, you have to have a healthy brain. You have to have a healthy nervous system so that your body can actually communicate back. And so that's something, that's a heads up, words to the wise, that words can only absorb into a healthy brain, into a healthy body. All right, so we're going to go back. I see that both Karash and Shalimar, just want to make sure you guys can be heard. Can you unmute? Because I'm going to go back and I want to make sure that I'm going back and you guys can be heard. Shalimar, can you unmute?
Yes, I just
All right.
Can you hear me now?
All right, I hear you now. Perfect. Okay, and Karash, can you be heard?
Yes, I'm here right now. Had a
Okay, technical difficulty.
I'm
All right.
I had to deal with a situation, an important call. I'm on now right now.
Okay, perfect. So are you able to see the screen, or are you coming in via phone?
I'm gonna come through the phone. That's all.
Okay, so we're looking at your chart that you put together with the cattle at the bottom of the house. So I know you have that right in hand. So the first part of our discussion, we discussed how Hebrew is the language that created, and now we're talking specifically about how certain words in this creative language were formed to make what is now the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, which had an influence on today's alphabet. So can you just take us really quick through maybe just a 2-minute, 3-minute breakdown of how certain these words, like for example, the word cattle, and how you say the word cattle, how do you say the word head, how do you say the word eye, and how this language was formed? Would you be able to do that?
Well, if you have get Genesis 2:19, if you can read that for me, or can somebody read that, or if I gotta get it, I'll get it.
I'll get it really quick, but we have to just try to. Okay, so let me grab
I'm gonna make it 2 scriptures, 2 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Just to
so Genesis
answer that one question.
19.
Yeah.
And out of the ground, the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof.
So now the Lord made all the creatures of the waters and seas and oceans and lakes in the 5th day. Then he made all the creatures of the land, elephants and tigers and snakes on the 6th day. After that, he made man on land, okay? Land creatures, water creatures. And then he brought them all to Adam over time. This is over time to name them. Just like a child is born, a child is already making sounds from the spirit. Then the child learns to write and to recognize shapes and letters. So the Lord gave Adam to look around at what he made and say, hey, make some letters, 22 of them, to document this language, this holy tongue that I'm speaking to you with. Okay, because babies learn from you just speaking to them first. Abba, Dada, Gada. They ain't reading nothing. They can't read yet. They're listening and mimicking. So it was the word first. Then came the letters. Then came the pictograms, pictures of the sounds of Yahweh. Then came the ideograms, which were the pictures. One of them, the first one was alap, which is the shape of a cow. And if you go to one more scripture, I'm going to just leave it right there.
Yep.
When you read into Genesis 4 and 4, Genesis 4 and 4, and then we'll stop it right there.
Okay, I'll read that for you. Genesis 4 and 4. And Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering.
So here we have Abel. He didn't just make up this offering to Yahweh through Adam, his father, who taught him what to offer at this time. There's a time to bring the first fruits of the originals that he brought. That's why he was rejected. This is a time to bring the first of your flock, which when you go into the flock, Leviticus 6, it goes to your flocks of your cattle, your goats, your sheep. The first, the best, you bring to the Lord 10%. He bless it, and that blesses the rest of your birth of your flock and all the health of your flock. And this is the sacrifice. And then you read the priests also ate a part of the sacrifice. So this is the meat law. Everything was already done in the beginning. We ate meat. We sacrificed animals. We also, ate vegetables. And we killed vegetables. Vegetables are life too. And we killed them. Vegetables have feelings. They feel when you kill them. That's why the Most High calls meat vegetables and vegetables meat, symbolically, poetically, to show you about the connectedness of the vegetables and the meat that we were designed to eat, from going back to the sacrificial laws and going back to the communication to the Most High, how he made, Adam made the 22 letters of Hebrew from all the things that were around him at that time, that he was naming, from the language that he was speaking from the Spirit, and the letters that the Lord told him to make from the Spirit. Letters which actually pictures first. And later on, they were simplified to shapes and letters, okay, that we call Hebrew today. That's
Excellent.
it.
Excellent. Thank you, Karash. Okay, the second one, Shalimar, you want to elaborate, or we could either use the first or second. You mentioned the word Abba and the word Amma. Can you break down what those two words mean and how they were formed?
Yeah, in accordance to like Elder Karash was saying about our language and it being a reflection of the things that were seen that the Most High created, so all the letters of a language, pictorials of things that existed. But also, when we put words together, we took characteristics of the things that existed and made words. And to give example of that, you mentioned the word Abba, right?
So let's look
Which
at
is
that.
father,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as the in the modern Hebrew is called an alif, right? And the ba in the modern Hebrew is called the beit or the beth, which means house. Beth means house, and the or the alif means the head of an ox, right? And if you look at the way our language depicted the head of the ox that is pushing, right? When an ox pushes, his horns, if you look at that letter, that's the horns pushing, right? So the understanding of, I see your cursor on there. So you see how the two horns are pushing, right? So the word that we form with the first two letters is father, right? It's the representation of a father, I should say, because there's no translating Hebrew to English, it's only transliterating, meaning finding a word that means a similar context. But in English, these words have multiple meanings. So we have to try to see what is the Hebraic meaning, the Hebraic thought pattern of the word. So Abba, meaning transliterated to father, actually means head of house, right? You got the head of the ox pushing, and then you have the house, the head of the house, right? The head of the beth, which is a covering. House also is a transliteration, actually means covering. The head of the covering, where it's sanctity, where it's safety, right? The head of the safety, the covering, the sanctity. So we have there the Abba, right? So in our Hebraic thought, the father could only be the head of the house, or else he would not be the Abba. Make sense?
Right.
Right, because it could not really be anything else, so. And then we could talk about the Amma, right, which is the mother. Mother. So we have the again, representing the head, right? Another head of the house. The other head of the house is the Amma, the mother. And then we go to the Ma, which means water, right? Water is, as he was going over earlier, which is beautiful video. Water is where our life springs from, right? Water is where life springs from. When a baby's being born, right before the baby's born, what happens? The woman says, "What? Her water is broken," right? Because this life is being formed. It's coming out of the woman, what they call the embryonic fluid. When you say water, water is classified as I guess, what's in the ocean, the streams, the rivers. But as we know, the water that's in the ocean, the water that's in the stream, and the water in the river is different. And the water that comes out the tap is different. And the water that falls from the air is different. But we all classify it as just water. Right? So the reason why I'm bringing that up, because water and fluid and liquid have similar understandings. Okay. So the Ama is the head of that giveth life in the household. Right? And we can go through the language. You can look at the name of the Most High, standing with, with our understanding of the name of the Most High, Yahweh. You know, if you look at the Yah, the Yud on the list, it's a hand, right? It says hand, but it's also a hand that's reaching from the heavens, right? And if you break down the whole word, you know, the hand, and then you go to the Ha, which is prayer or breathing or breath or spirit, right? And then you go to the Yahweh, right? So you go to the Wa, which I'm looking at this. I can't really see what he has down here, but
He has camel rain hook. Camel rain hook.
Yeah, let me see the other list. The other.
Sure.
Okay. And what do you have for the Wa? Or the? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is it this nail? This?
Yeah. The Vav. Peg. You see that? You had hook. Right. So the hook is a good example. The peg is a good example. It's a connector to the spirit. It's the man praying connected to the spirit, and the Most High reaching down and break down the word of our Creator. All right. It's a connector in between. The Y plays a connector in any word, brings the two consonants together. That's before it and after it. So that's what it does in the language per se. So the nail or the peg is what it does. It attaches things, tethers something to another thing, right? It's a tethering. That's the best way to explain it. And so it tethers and makes and brings those two, what we call consonants in English language, or pictorials or letters or symbols together. All right. So we see that the breath is being brought together by the hand of the Most High. In the name of the Most High's name.
Can we just do it slow? Can we do it a little slower so that everyone could get it? So we have the Yah, which is in the modern is the Yod, which is the arm, right?
The arm and the hand reaching. Right?
And then we have the prayer, which one is the Ha?
The Ha,
which is this, right?
It's prayer, but it's also the breath or spirit.
Okay.
Right? The prayer. Right, so that's what when you pray. You praying. Your words are going out.
Right.
And our words are spirit. Right. Our breath is life. You're going into the language. Right. So our words, spirit, breath, life. So we have that. Go ahead.
And then you have the Va, which is
the or the Wa.
And so that's the connector.
Right.
So it's connecting the prayer with the arm of the Creator, connecting them together. Okay. So you guys see that?
But what you have is the arm of the Most High. You have the spirit, which is, then you have the connecting to the prayer. So it's what's connecting to the Most High when we call His name. It's like when I call your name Kashab, you say yes.
Right.
Because I'm connecting to you.
Correct.
Right. We call Yahweh, we're connecting to Him, but it's actually in His name saying to connect to me.
Got it. Okay.
He's telling us what to do in His name. You know what I'm saying? So,
excellent. Excellent. Okay, Shalom, thank you for that. You guys hang out because we're going to most likely have Q&A after. If anyone has any questions, I just want to skip through the rest of the presentation, and then we'll come back. So thank you for that. And also, Estella, thank you. So we obviously see that there's power in words. We came out from the spirit side of it. We went into the water side of it. We know there's mathematical values. We know that the Hebrew language actually was created from the original person, Adam, naming the things that he saw, and what he named actually now is transliterated into meanings of words that today now are being translated into other words like God, etc., which is the transliteration of the original intended man connecting with the spirit of the creator. So words and conversations affect the subconscious mind, not only of us, but also of newborns up to 6 years old, subconsciously. So you can speak into a child, a baby, the words and the intentions that you want to create. A 3-year-old, the words and intentions you want to create, or you can speak damnation and let that lock into the subconscious mind of a child. And so this is just some education so that we can pick and choose how we want the outcome to be. Okay, yesterday we had a conversation about writing the script of your life that you want. And do you now write the ending that you want, or do you just kind of let the story run? So this conversation allows us to be able to pick the words for the story that we want to create, or think the words for what we want to create within ourselves, within our children. Now, the scriptures speak about being born again. So can words create a rebirth? Just like words influence a baby, can words create a rebirth? Words help with spiritual rebirth too. Here's a scripture, Acts 11:15. This is Peter speaking. He says, as I began to speak, the Holy Spirit fell on them, as on to us at the beginning. So there's power in words, because as he spoke, the people were sent back to where they were originally. The Holy Spirit baptized them to recalibrate back to the original intent. Just like when the word was spoken in the beginning and created, the Holy Spirit now, when spoken, recreates, rebirths the listener. So yes, the water is symbolic, but the spirit transforms. Words hurt or words heal. It's all in the decision of the speaker, and also in the decision of the listener, because you can tune out words too. In the world, they say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a lie. The truth is that the stroke of the whip make marks in the flesh, but the stroke of the tongue break the bones. And that's scripture. Ecclesiastes 28 and 17. So what you say lasts longer. Sometimes some of us are dealing with trauma from something that was said 30, 40 years ago. Holding a grudge because the words remain, the scenario is over. When you start speaking about the scenario, tone of voice change, eyes well up, because those words are still running through your nervous system. They're still part of you. They're in your tissue. You're in your bone. They're in your subconscious. So words do hurt, and they repeat themselves over and over like a tape recorder. Using the power of words to heal, to create, and to transform. Can you do that? This is from Rafaela. She's an artist, and she's created images, very strong images of expression. And of course, art is up to the interpretation of the viewer. But for some, they'll have one view and say, wow, that really, really moved me. Or some may be like, oh my God, like the one we're looking at, oh my God, a snake. They may have a different, I'm scared of snakes. I can't even look at it. Okay. Images speak. How they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. You know, for those who didn't understand that words in the form of picture are still words. A picture speaks 1,000 words because your mind and the interpretation and the voices. from what you see or the memories they conjure up? How about images of positive affirmation? Stay positive. Better days are on the way. Every day is a new beginning. Take a deep breath, smile, and start again. Can you use the content to speak into your subconscious mind? Can you have a positive regimen? Speak into your subconscious mind the results you want going into your brain, into your nervous system, into your subconscious, into your habits, into your behavior. It's so simple. You just have to make the choice. What words, what images, what sounds do you want in your life? Songs with lyrics and meaning. Motivational speeches. Some of us are so wired with negative that we are addicted to it. We want to hear the tea. We want to hear the gossip. We're wired because our bodies are addicted to negativity. We crave it. We want more. You can rewire yourself with new content to where it's like, nope, nope, don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear any negative. So sounds, positive, good music, instrumental music, to just keep your spirit at Zen, at zero. That could be good for your brain. Might even help your brain not shrink early. What about conversations? That's a good way to heal and to create. 30-day redemption conversations. Go listen to the 30-day redemption conversations and see if that stimulates good energy into your subconscious, into your neurons, into your brain, into your habits, into your behavior. Now your conversations are different. Listen to some TED Talks. Have a confidant that you can talk to, that listens to you, that you can have good vibes. Maybe an accountability partner. Have conversations with your accountability partner. They'll call you. Hey, did you take your vitamins? Yep. Good. How about a circle of trust to create it? You may not have it, but you have to create. You have to put in, you have to get out. How about a life coach and having conversations with your life coach? What about a mentor? So these are options on how you can start getting some good content in you to heal or to help to keep you in a good space. Speak life. So we're going to open up for some Q&A. Hopefully we have some good questions. Does anyone have any questions for any of the people on the panel, be it Karash, be it Shalimar, Estella? Any questions for me? Does anyone have any questions or any thoughts they'd like to bring out? Did anyone gain anything from the conversation?
This is Shalom. I got a question for Estella.
Estella? Shalimar has a question? Yep. Okay. What you got?
In her research on the brain, did she do any research concerning how fasting or not eating affects the brain or nourishes the brain and things of that sort? I was just questioning on that.
Okay. Estella, any feedback on fasting in the brain? Hopefully she's...
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I just stepped out for a second.
Shalimar wanted to know if you had any research on the fasting and how fasting affects the brain, whether good or bad.
I don't have any research on that, but just from the top of my brain, I would think that because fasting is basically we are replenishing from the day-to-day things that we put in our mind, our bodies, and our thoughts. So most of the time, some of the things that we may put in our minds and our thoughts in our bodies are not so good. So pretty much, our body, it's like an orchestra, and our brain is the conductor. So anytime that we put things in our mind and our body that influences the brain, it's either doing good or bad. So I would say, you know, taking away certain things like fasting, I would think that it does help to replenish, you know, our thinking, which has to do with our brain and the signals and the electrical chemicals that we're putting out. So I would believe that it does, but I don't have too much research on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Estella. And I know, Shalimar, that's something that you do. You want to just talk a little bit about what effect it has on you as far as clarity or anything else as far as fasting, and what do you feel when you fast?
Well, yeah, yeah. Fasting in itself, um, as Estella, I believe, was saying, it's a replenishing time. It's a time that you're not bringing in anything else, but using what is already, you know, in your body, and your body starts to metabolize the things that's in it. And therefore, as it breaks things down, it simplifies things, and it's simplifying of these compounds that we ingest. Um, it's able to break it down to its lowest form, which is energy, right? Different types of energy, right? That's the lowest form of everything that we ingest. It's some sort of energy, right? And the reason why the scriptures always called for us to fast, when there was either a encounter of a spiritual kind or something we were trying to overcome or achieve, it was a higher level of cleansing, cleaning ourselves up, right? So the body cleans itself. They sell things called self-cleaning. Well, our body's also self-cleaning, and it happens when we are not giving the body anything else that it needs to break down, so it can go back, internalize, and start to break down the things within it. So, I would love to see what our research finds with it, but what I've found is that it does replenish the brain.
Mm.
It can actually reverse Alzheimer's.
Mm.
Right? There's a lot of research saying it reversed the effect of Alzheimer's and shrinking of the brain and the things of that sort, because these things are very connected to what we ingest. So when I say fasting, I'm talking about either dry, nothing, no food, no water, or water fasting. You just ingest water. There's many different types of fasting. There's fruit fast and vegetable fast, and just simplifying what we're taking in so the body can work on all the other things, and just simplifying the compounds in our body. So I do it myself. I'm talking about it, but I'm also a practicer of it. Try to fast 2-3 days. Extend them 4 days, 5 days, whatever I can go, whatever I can get in, and it definitely sharpens the mind. It definitely makes you a lot more cognizant. Makes you able to retrieve information from your brain a lot easier during your fast. You're not clouded. And then your senses become very sharp. Your eyes become a little brighter. Your sense of smell, becomes a little sharper. Things of that sort. So that's my experience, and I would venture to go deeper scientifically wise, but I'll stay right there. Right.
Excellent. Okay, well, that was good information. I also came across a video, some of you might have seen it, where a gentleman that had Alzheimer's listened to music, and the music joggled his memory. So there's something about music that helps people to remember. I guess it's nostalgic. It helps them to remember a certain time. So music also, and those words have the power to restore memory as well. All right. Any other questions? Any other comments? I see Salome, you unmuted. Did you have a comment or a question?
No. I don't have a comment. I'm just appreciating the information that is being shared. Still processing it.
Excellent. Well, there will be a replay, so whatever you missed, you can play it again until you have it, and then you could always drop any of the questions in our chat on our fan page. Okay. Well, thank you, Salome. Okay. Janye, did you have a question or comment? I seen you unmuted your mic.
Yes, this is Dana and Janye, my daughter.
Okay.
We basically, we're just sitting here, just taking all of this in. And Janye and I were talking about water and what that means to us, and the effect of this. Has been a great presentation, and we want to thank you all for it, everybody. And I wanted to say something to Estella in reference to the brain and injury, and how Janye was able to rewire her brain after injury. It's just so fascinating to hear all these components, the water, the brain, and music. Thank you all for this presentation. We enjoyed it and we learned so much.
Awesome. That's the intent. Okay. Did anyone else have any questions or any comments for any of the panelists, or a general question as we wrap up this 30-day redemption? Okay. Well, I wanted to thank the speakers that came on and for their time and for their knowledge. The presentation has a lot of value when we have people who spend time within their field. I know Karaj for many years, and he has put a lot of time into study, as well as the pictograms and the drawings. He has a lot more, and Karaj is going to be putting out a book. So hopefully once that book is done, we can make that available, or help him in making that available, so that you guys can get more information, because what you see on the screen was just a fragment of the many different pieces of study and history that he has and the time that he's put in. And Shalama also has classes to go deeper into various subjects. And so we'll reach out and gather, or maybe have him come on for one of our off 30-day redemption discussions, because he also has a lot of knowledge. And also Estella, you know, as she's studying in the medical field and gathering her knowledge, has brought great value by bringing in information. We're really going deep into this brain thing, because our goal and desire is really to redeem. So yes, we are having the 30-day redemption for 1 hour, but we really want to see people's lives become better. And so, you know, she's going to be heavy in the research, and we will bring out information and experts, you know, people who study those specific areas to speak to us, to show us what we need to do. So thank you all. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your knowledge. And also for all of the participants, thank you for coming on. Please do share the 30-day redemption platform. It is a free platform for you to come and for you to share. And right now, as of today, we will have 56 transformational videos on our social media fan page. To sign up, just let everyone know about 30dayredemption.com. Every day you'll get an email, and we will be doing workshops on various topics: writers workshops, performance workshops, trauma, grief, business, etc., so that you can plug in and go beyond just the information within the 1 hour. So thank you everyone for your time. Thank you all the speakers and the guests. We will see you tomorrow for day 27. We are 3 days out from wrapping up this month's 30-day redemption, and then we'll pick up again in September. But we will have workshops in July and August. Okay, so everyone have a great day. Thank you so much. We will be in touch tomorrow. Take care.